What I want to answer today is, why are waivers taking so long? All right, I was meeting with a client today and he's like just frustrated. Like, why is this taking so long? And I just want to walk you through it. Imagine you're married to a U.S. citizen, but you entered the country unlawfully. You've only entered the country one time, all right? You don't have any other issues with the law, right? But you crossed the border once without authorization. If that's your situation, immigration law requires that you, even though you're married to a U.S. citizen, the law requires that you request a waiver of your quote-unquote unlawful presence in the United States. It's a waiver of the 10-year bar. And what I'm talking about is what we call the provisional waiver, the I601A, to waive the 10-year bar before a person leaves the United States. And remember, a person becomes inadmissible if they have more than a year of unlawful presence and then leave the United States. So you want to get that waiver approved before leaving. These types of cases are a three-step process. Step number one is the petition. A U.S. citizen spouse, you love your spouse, you love your wife, your husband, you want to file a petition for them. That petition says two things. First, it says that you are a United States citizen. And second, it says that your husband, your wife, your spouse is your lawful spouse. That's it. That's all the petition says. Just this petition process, well, I'll talk about the process in just a second, processing times, etc. After the petition gets approved, now step two is you file the waiver, all right, the I601A waiver, as long as you're eligible for the I601A. Some people aren't eligible, all right, if you have other inadmissibility issues like immigration fraud or alien smuggling, if you've ever helped another person, even in your family, cross the border without permission, then you're not technically eligible for the I601A. So talk to a lawyer, right? Talk to your lawyer if you're not clear. But if you only have one unlawful entry into the United States, then you're eligible to file a waiver on Form I601A here in the U.S. All right? That waiver will be pending for a long time. Then step three of the process is what's called the consular process, and you actually go to your consular appointment in your home country out of the United States, and you go to a medical exam, you go to your appointment, you get a stamp in the passport, which allows you to get on an airplane or cross the border, legally, and then when re-entering the U.S. and re-entering, you pay a little fee, and they process your green card. Okay? This is the process. But each of these steps have steps, all right? So the petition, step one, first of all, you've got to prepare and file the documentation, which is like this thick or so, an inch thick or so of documents typically, all right, can range depending on how much evidence you have and want to submit demonstrating your relationship. The government wants to see that you have a bona fide relationship. It's not just for immigration purposes, and so if you have children together, it's easier to document. You can do it in shorter packets because it's pretty clear. But if you have a relationship that's a brand new one, or if or if it's a different type of relationship, whatever that means, then sometimes it makes sense to document it more thoroughly. So preparing and filing it might take more time. All right. Once it's on file, then the government will issue receipt notices, and those receipt notices will have a case number related to the petition. All right. And you want to pay attention to the receipt notices, and you want to make sure your name is spelled correctly on it and your address is correct on it. And if you're working with a lawyer, you want to make sure that your lawyer also got the receipt notice. Okay. And then you want to be using the number from your receipt notice to enter it into uscis.gov so you can monitor the case, the petition itself. All right. Step 3 is the long wait. And then step 4 is an approval notice. All right, so how long does just that first step take? Well, right now, to give you an idea, I'll kind of share this screen here. This is USCIS, all right? Current processing times. This is at the Vermont Service Center. They say 16 months for a U.S. citizen spouse filing for their spouse, okay? Now, that's different. You know, California Service Center says 10.5 months, all right? The Nebraska Service Center, to give you an idea, on today's date, the 27th of February, says 10.5 months. So different parts of the country will process it slightly slower, slightly longer. Texas Service Center says 11.5 months. And to know where to file, you've got to look, you've got to compare your zip code, right? We've got clients from around the United States, so you got to prepare your zip code to the filing address location on uscis.gov, and you'll see it in your receipt notice, right? Your lawyer will file it to the proper location for your case, and you don't have a choice in it, right? You can't just file it to the faster service center. That's the way the petition works. I recommend expecting the whole petition process to take 1.5 years. Sometimes it takes less than that, but it's going to take at least 1 year, start to finish. Okay? After you have the approval of the waiver, or sorry, of the petition, then you can start the waiver process. And the first thing that the government has to do is they need to send your approved petition to the National Visa Center. And you have to get a case number through the National Visa Center. Now, the National Visa Center is actually starting step 3. All right, the National Visa Center is part of the State Department, and they control the consulates outside the country. But that's the way. That's part of the process. All right, and we've got to tell them, hey, hold on, Consular Process, hold on, National Visa Center. We've got to first file a waiver in this case because the beneficiary, the immigrant, you, right, entered the country without permission, so we've got to request a waiver. Okay, so then we get the case number, though, and we have to pay a fee to the government, to the National Visa Center, to get that case going, and only after that can we prepare and file the waiver itself. Now, in my office, when we do a waiver, it's like this thick, right? We're talking often 200 pages of documents to file a waiver, asking all the reasons why our spouse would suffer an extreme level of hardship. You know, you want to show medical issues and, you know, psychological evaluation and, you know, whatever we can possibly demonstrate, document to show and try to convince the government that they should approve your waiver so that you can get a green card without having to wait outside the United States for 10 years. Okay? That's what the waiver is asking. So then we prepare and we file the waiver. Then, this should be a number 3, we get a receipt notice for the waiver. Pay attention to the receipt notice and pay attention to the case number on the receipt notice. Then you have a long wait. You might get an RFE or a request for additional evidence, and then you'll get an approval notice. Now, just looking at current processing times for that, let me see if I can find it. So for waivers, right now, the I601A, at least there's 2 service centers that do it, Nebraska and Potomac. So the Potomac Service Center is saying 39.5 months to approve and this is on today's date, the 27th of February of 2023, okay? So it's like more than 3 years. That's 3 years, 3.5 months of a process. Or at the Nebraska Service Center, it's a little bit better, 34.5 months. Last week it was saying 36 months, right? So it takes a long time. These are incredibly slow processes, all right? And why is it that way? Well, that's a great question. You know, the pandemic happened. These cases used to take 8 months to get a waiver approved, and now it's 34 to 36 to 39 months. Very, very slow process. All right. And then, but that's what the process is. Now, it's also worth mentioning that last month, where is it? Attorneys in Washington, D.C. filed a class action lawsuit against USCIS saying that they're, because of, they call them extreme processing delays that leave American families stranded. All right. And so this was filed on January 24th, 2023. And so we'll see. There's a class action lawsuit against the government saying, hey, these long waits are ridiculous. Let's speed up the review, government. And government is saying, hey, we need to hire more people and we need to charge more fees and we need to do all this stuff in order to address the backlog. But basically it happened as a result of the pandemic, although it really started happening just during the Trump administration. We started seeing serious pushback on all of our family-based cases, especially with waivers involved. So anyway, so that's going on. That's happening. Once the waiver is done, all right, then you can move forward with the consular process. And sometimes there are delays here. Okay, so maybe your waiver was already approved, and now you're waiting for your consular appointment. Well, if so, congratulations, you're in the last part of the process, but even that process can take months and years. Okay? That process requires you to first prepare and file the DS-260 and the I-864, all the sponsorship stuff, and all the other documents that your consulate requires, to show it's documentarily qualified to set the appointment, right? For example, you need a document to show that you don't have a criminal record, right? You've got to, or if you do have a criminal record, you got to show all of that, right? And lots of other things. With the I-864, there's tax returns. There's lots of other things that are required by the consulate, birth certificates, things of that nature, identity documents, in order to even get the interview scheduled. Then you've got to wait for the consular appointment to even get set, because also due in large part to the pandemic, right, the embassies throughout the world were closed, right? The pandemic wasn't just in the United States, as you're aware, it was in Mexico and every other country throughout the world. And so many places were closed down and had their embassies closed down. And then, so once the appointment gets set, which they're opening back up and scheduling appointments, then step 3 is you leave the U.S., you attend your medical exam, you attend your consular appointment. If everything goes well there, you'll get a stamp in your passport to then enter the U.S. and get your green card, okay? But this is the process. And I wanted to explain this process because it is taking forever right now. And you're not alone if you're frustrated with how long this process is taking. And I just wanted to explain it. All right. So like if you've got one of these cases, where in the process is your case? Like think about it. Where exactly, which receipt notice do you have? Like, are you waiting for the petition to get approved? Are you waiting for your waiver to get approved? Are you checking the right application's case number? Because the petition's case number is different from the waiver's case number. So you want to make sure you're checking the right processing times, right? And anyway, if my office can help you in any way with any of this, please feel free to reach out. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say for now. So I really appreciate your being here. I've got another slide. What did I just put on it? Oh, just thank you. Okay, perfect. So that's my last slide. So thank you all so much for being here. Again, I'm Otis Landerholm, Landerholm Immigration, A.P.C, where we fight for your American dream. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye.